Well, at ease, paratroopers. If you like that reference from HBO's hit series Band of Brothers, you're going to like this podcast. My name is Kevin Kidder, and after 20 years in the Army, I discovered something unexpected. The toughest battles weren't behind me, they were just different. This is the Enduring Mindset Podcast. Here in our inaugural season, The Invisible Veteran, we'll explore what it takes to reclaim purpose, rebuild identity, and restore connection after service. This podcast isn't just for veterans, it's for anyone navigating transition leaders, spouses, teammates, anyone asking, who am I now and what comes next? Each week, I'll share lessons from my journey, stories from others who've walked similar paths, and tools to help you build what I call an enduring mindset, one forged through adversity, guided by purpose, and grounded in service to others. Before we dive in, I just want to say thank you for being here. I know there are literally thousands of other things you could be listening to, and the fact you chose this podcast means a lot. My hope is that you walk away each week with something useful, a story, a reminder, or even just a little encouragement. This week's guest is former Army Sergeant and current Fire Lieutenant Jason Coleman. Jason and I have been friends and brothers for 23 years. We trained for and deployed together to Iraq in 2004. And since leaving the Army, Jason has fulfilled his goal and found purpose as a fire lieutenant, where he brings that same warrior spirit and servant's heart into everything he does. In this conversation, we dive into what service really means, how brotherhood shapes you, and what it looks like to carry those lessons into life after the uniform. Jason is not only a soldier and firefighter, but a man of principle, grit, and unwavering loyalty. So buckle up. This is a raw, real, and meaningful conversation with someone who has been in the trenches with me, literally and figuratively. Here's my conversation with Jason Coleman. Dude, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being on here.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
So whenever I have a guest, I want the listener to understand who and why the guest is here. So we met when the company had just come back from Kosovo. I don't remember if it was right after deployment or maybe after block leave, but we lived in the B's and you were in the room next to me. And I remember you coming out stoic as always. And I saw your airborne wings and I was super jealous. And like Conor McGregor in my head, I was like, who the fook is this guy? Well, this guy, you, became my first true friend in the military. You immediately presented yourself as a man of principles, values, and integrity. And in the 23 years I've known you, I don't think I've ever seen you lose composure. And what a blessing to have such a strong, yet professional presence in my life for over 2 decades. So, listener, when you hear Jason speak, you're going to instantly ask, okay, what does he look like? Because that accent is instantly identifiable. And all I can say is if Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and Jeremy Reiner's character from the movie The Town had a love child, it would be you. So go ahead and say hi to everybody.
What's happening? I appreciate that introduction. I feel it's a little undeserving, but yeah, I'll very happy to be here. And I'll echo your sentiment. Meeting in the barracks and first friend in the unit there, it was an amazing experience.
And I don't know if you guys could hear that. He is from the Northeast in the Boston region, home of America's birth. So we love that. I always like to share a story. And the story I want to share with everybody was Christmas before we went to Iraq. Me, you, Gup, and a couple others jumped in the car, drove down, and we stayed at my mom's house. And her favorite memory ever of you, she calls you her first other son. You know, we had some drinks and we're playing cards, goofing off, just being young, dumb idiots in the Army. You fell asleep in the living room by that fireplace. It was a two-way fireplace. It could heat up the whole like front of the house. So the living room into the kitchen, on the other side by the dining room. It's one of my favorite memories. I have pictures of it because it was just us before our lives changed forever. And we were just comfortable and it was just a lot of fun. That's her favorite, and that's one of my favorite memories. And then after Iraq, I PCS to Hawaii. you were going to recruiting school and then following on with recruiting duty. And as life does, we didn't see each other for 8 years. Obviously, we kept in touch, but when we finally had the chance to catch up in person, it was before I PCS to Germany. Seeing you was so cathartic. But when it was time to leave, other than saying goodbye to my family before a deployment, that was the hardest goodbye I've ever had.
100% agree. I'll touch on a couple of things that you said there. You mentioned two memories here, and they're legit core memories for me. One being at your mom's house before deployment. Like, that was one of our last times to just chill out, relax. We were definitely gearing up to go, you know, get into some shit. And it really was an amazing fireplace too. One of those pass through fireplaces, and that's a dream of mine to have maybe one day in a house. I don't know. I just felt at peace at home there. Your mom was so welcoming and inviting. Same thing with Robert. And I was with like my safe people, you and Gavin, whoever else was there. It was just an ultimate core memory. And then, I'll echo what you just said too. When I saw you, so first of all, I'll back up a little bit. When you PCSed to Hawaii, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget that actually last time I saw you, I want to say we were out, I believe it was at Schooners, which was a bar, and, we were drinking or whatever. And I think my sister was there, and she ended up giving me a ride home. And I had said goodbye to you that night, whatever, held it together. Man, I'll tell you, when I got into the car on the way back, I bawled my eyes out like a friggin' baby. It felt like I didn't know if I was ever going to see you again. It felt like I was like losing a brother. So that was really hard. But to see you again 8 years later, it brought me so much peace. And it's interesting, and we'll get into it later when, we got all of our families together and went on vacation together after that, so many years. That was, and I would tell my ex-wife this, that was the best night of sleep that I had being around you and Kay in the past 8 years or whatever it was. I felt at peace. I felt safe. I felt like I was home, even though we were on vacation in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee in the mountains. It was a comforting feeling for me.
I totally agree and I get it. And it's part of what this season, The Invisible Veteran, and what the forthcoming book emphasizes is connection, especially after service. And Kay talked about it during his interview, and it's just being around your people and your tribe. It makes all the difference in the world. And those that are struggling, have struggled, or if they're serving and will struggle, just know that something as simple as reconnecting with someone who meant the world to you can make a world of difference.
Very true.
So in April, I was at a conference in Los Angeles, and I had the opportunity to go to a breakout session held by Brett Ledbetter, who is a mental performance coach, mainly for basketball people. He's a big basketball guy, and he's got a website, he's got books, and he was pitching his new book at the very end. He's a very classy guy. It's called 365 Questions to Get to Know Yourself and Your Team Better. And he was like, I encourage you to open the book and just at random and answer questions, or if you're going to be dealing with clients, open it up and talk to them. And when I decided to do the podcast, I was like, I am definitely taking what he said and making it my own. With that, I asked you to pick a number between 1 and 365. You gave me your number. So, as many of his are, it's a two-part question. So I'll start with the first.
Sure.
If you were going to talk to pressure like it was a person and had to describe 3 ways it has impacted your life, what would you say?
That's a good question. If I had to talk to pressure, I would say it's a good tool. You're a good tool to keep me sharp, but you're not going to control me. You help elevate me to the best of my abilities, but you're not going to run the show. That still belongs with me.
I love that. What can you learn or take away from your answer to pressure?
What can I learn from it? So you find out, for the lack of a better term, you find out what you're made of, and you find out what you can handle, and you find out how you can react with pressure. And that can come in many different forms, whether it's in the military life or civilian life or even life at home. Like, it's helped me figure out that I actually do work well under pressure, including to this day, whether it's at home or with my job, to be able to make sound decisions to accomplish that goal, but taking care of the people around you as well as yourself. And it's not an easy thing all the time, but it makes you a better person.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And, as soon as I opened the book and I read that, the first thing I thought of was Billie Jean King, who's credited with coining the phrase pressure is a privilege. And, I think about that saying a lot, that it's not a negative burden, but instead it's an earned advantage and a sign of trust. And it's kind of an indication that in a specific situation or environment, you are expected to.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you for that answer. If you're okay with that, I'd like to maybe zoom back a little bit and talk about your time in the military.
Yeah, hit me with it, man. I'm ready.
So, you and I served at Fort Lewis together and then obviously in Iraq. And looking back, what do you remember most about those days? What is it, the danger? Is it the downtime, the brotherhood? When you get those cold winter nights in the Northeast and you're by fire, what is it that pops into Jason's head?
It's a good question. My time in Iraq with you, it's mixed. So I'll start out with it was freaking boring. It was boring as hell. Like Iraq was boring. You wait around or you do missions until it becomes very not boring all of a sudden. Um, but it sucked being away from family. It sucked being out of the United States. You miss a lot of the stuff that you take for granted, but it sucks for everybody at the same time. And what I think about is that, you know, you took a group of individuals who worked well together as a team and it sucked for everybody at once. And we just kind of, you know, helped each other get through it. So, do I miss it? Shockingly, yeah, I do. Life is actually easier even in a combat zone because you have your
Hmm.
mission, you know what to do, you plan for it, and then you execute. Where life on the outside, life back in the States, or definitely life in the civilian world, you don't really have a mission here. There's no clear direction. You kind of figure it out on your own. It's time to adult when you get back here. Not saying members of the military aren't adults, but you're kind of on your own out here. So that's what you miss. You miss definitely the camaraderie, like
Hmm.
the bonds formed um, in the military are unbreakable. Christ, my son's two middle names are named after you in Guptill. That should tell you a lesson or something. But
Absolutely.
yeah,
I don't ever miss the downtime. I hate it. All day you could go around do nothing, just sweeping rocks or mopping the motor pool while it's raining. I do remember a distinct conversation you and I had with a couple other people when we found out we were on orders, and there's a handful of us that were looking forward to the danger because we understood the saying that a knight in shining armor has never had his metal tested.
yes,
And METTLE for you ignorant wretches out there, not METAL. It wasn't that we're adrenaline junkies. It was we have a rare opportunity and time to be put in the forge and see what we're made of.
yeah, correct.
And you know, second platoon, 66 FP company, 1-0 against the Mahdi militia in Honor Job 2004.
True
Um,
story.
check it out; it's a great story. Yeah, but definitely the brotherhood. I think out of everything, and that's kind of what drove the book. We had so many conversations. Now, if you ever listen to this, Guptill definitely put on Tyrese's Sweet Lady because you were in the ASV with us.
100%.
But like you shaved your head when the Sox won the World Series, which was
Yep.
awesome. Yeah,
Yep.
Trabuco, Yankees still suck. I don't know how you blow a 3-0 lead, but still the biggest upset in sports history. Like I loved watching you navigate the platoon because as I said, you're a man of principle, but people are drawn to you. All the squads, like you could just move from environment to environment and be that guy. And I loved it. I was jealous because I didn't have people skills yet at that time. And it was just fun. Like, whether it was watching Finding Nemo because Early got it in the mail, or you and Hayhurst doing something like just it was great. And yeah, the brotherhood was easily the best.
Yep, I agree.
So, as we mentioned, you moved on from our first duty station for recruiting duty. That's not something I've experienced, nor have I met many recruiters. You see them a lot, but actually having someone who had to do that job, how did that role change how you saw the Army and then people in general?
Um, so that's a great question. So we're talking about two separate animals here, and my change of the Army didn't necessarily change, just my role changed quite a bit, and I hated every single minute of it. Recruiting duty is not it's not big Army. If you're used to big Army, like with the camaraderie and a clear defined mission like that's what you like. But recruiting duty is a different animal. You're kind of out there by yourself. Yeah, you're assigned to a station with a station commander, and then you might have a few more recruiters in there. I was assigned to a recruiting station initially in Boston, right down the street from Fenway Park, and then I got moved to the city of Brockton, which is about 20 minutes outside of Boston. And it sucked. It was tough. Very, very hard mission. It's a obviously crucial mission. The Army has to fill its ranks even to today. But we were in the middle of two wars at the time. We had Iraq full blown going on still, Afghanistan full blown going on still. And it was a hard, hard, hard mission. And being up here in the Northeast, yeah, this is the founding place of the nation, but it is really, really hard to recruit kids up here. Their amount of colleges in this area are second to none around the world. Like
Absolutely.
there's more colleges per square mile and per capita in Massachusetts than anywhere else in the world. So most kids coming out of high school already have their plan set for them, especially talking with their parents. Their parents are going to really push them go to college. And as soon as you call them as a recruiter saying, this is Sergeant Coleman from United States Army, you get a lot of hangups. So it was a
I
tough
bet.
mission. I missed the camaraderie. Didn't feel like I was still part of the big Army, and I was just kind of biding my time. By the time I actually got out to my recruiting station, I had less than, I think, 10 months left in my enlistment. And I knew I wasn't going to re-enlist, so I just had to do my time until I ETS'd. But it was a really, really, really tough mission.
I bet. Did it change anything about how you saw people? Like at some point, you're a salesman for the military, and every organization needs it, whether you're a public service organization fighting for public funds, or if you're a corporation, or if you're, a small business, you have to try and sell yourself to somebody else, which is counterintuitive to wearing that uniform,
True,
right?
very true. Yeah. So yeah, it did change my view of people a little bit because I come from a very patriotic family and a very patriotic background and a long list of veterans, and I figure that's how most people are, and it's really not. Like whether it was the fact that we were still in two wars, people didn't want to hear anything about the military. They thought that was the worst idea ever, and still only stupid people go into the military and that couldn't get into college. And you and I both know that that's BS. But and people will get actually downright nasty when it comes to either them or their loved one, even having the idea of thinking about the military, where parents will get violent or parents will get verbally abusive to a recruiter for even talking to their loved ones. So yeah, it changed my view of people a little bit, but there's still good ones out.
Absolutely. This just popped into my head. You just talked about a prejudice, right? Military people are stupid. You can't make anything else out of your life. You would think after 249 years, our country, after all it's been through, would find a way to change the lens with which we look at other people. Obviously, last week, significant event based on something like that. Prejudice just, it can't happen.
Yeah.
We have to be a smarter society than to judge a book by its cover. Oh, you do this for a job? Well, everyone's got a different background, different set of circumstances, and it's one phase, one chapter of their life. It's not an all defining moment.
Right.
What's one leadership lesson from the military that you've been able to carry into civilian life?
So especially with my current job, and this is something that I definitely took from the military, is that completion of the mission is always your highest priority. But second most important thing is to take care of your subordinates and take care of the people that work for you and take care of yourself too, because if you're not right, they're not going to be right. I remember you as one of the strongest leaders I've ever met in the Army really, really, really preach that. Like, let's get our job done, but I'm going to make sure that you guys are taken care of. And you did that to a T. So I really try to attribute that to my civilian life. And it even translates it into like home life too. Like
Mhm.
when I get my son home from school, it's like, all right, buddy, what's our mission here? And I don't say mission, but I was like, let's bang out homework real quick, get that done. And then we got the rest of the day to do whatever we want to do. And if that means he wants to go for a 2-hour drive to go review a chocolate chip cookie, I'm in, because we've done our job already.
Yeah, real quick, I need you to plug that. Where can listeners follow this?
Absolutely. Yeah. He's going to die. So, my son and I started an Instagram page. It's called the Chocolate Chip the Chocolate Chip Kid on Instagram. And we go around the New England area reviewing and rating chocolate chip cookies. And I don't know, it's just a fun time for him and I. We make day trips out of it and then get to find really damn good cookies.
Absolutely. All right, you heard it. Go find the chocolate
The
chip
Chocolate
kid.
Chip Kid. Yep.
The
The Chocolate
chocolate
Chip
chip
Kid.
kid. All right. If I love how you said you have to place the mission first and then your people. It's about priorities, and it's not saying that the mission is more important than the people, but if you don't have a vision, a goal, an end state, something you're working towards, then you're actually doing a disservice for the people under your care, whether they're employees, your family, the the people you live and love and work with. Wandering around aimlessly without a purpose is detrimental. What is something you wish people, whether they are in or out of uniform, understood about the dark side of transition, that invisible feeling? And if you don't mind, share what your journey was like.
Uh, Probably the biggest thing is you're not alone with that feeling. There's thousands of veterans that are transitioning back into the real world that are feeling the same exact thing as you do. And my advice to you is just, find your click. For me, it happened to be I transitioned into a job that was pretty similar, and we'll get into that in a little bit, I'm sure. Um, but also keep in touch with the men and women that you serve with, the people that you form bonds with, because they know how you're feeling if they're out or transitioning to. But even if they're still in or don't know how you're feeling, you can give them a heads up. Be like, hey, I'm having a struggle out here right now in the civilian world. I feel like I lost my purpose a little bit, but you didn't lose your purpose. It just looks different now. And you have to go find what it looks like to you. So for me, transitioning was hard, but not as hard as some people. Like I wanted a job where I had the camaraderie, which largely I do, but it still does look a little bit different. I did feel very alone when I got back out into the real world. Like I couldn't go next door to your room in the barracks and be like, dude, I went on this date with a girl and she was an absolute smoke show. I don't know what the hell she was doing with me, type of thing.
They always are with you, my man.
Yeah, that's fake news. No, it's just it's lonely at first, but it doesn't last forever. You got to find your click, find your purpose, and hold on to that, and strive to achieve your goals, whatever it may be, and don't you friggin' dare quit. We don't quit. That's just not an option. It was tough for me. I ended up getting hired by my job, settled in after my first year, started making some good friends, and that's part of my purpose right now, which is a big part of my life.
I love that. And if you're listening, there's some really big takeaways. You're not alone. This too shall pass, and it takes effort, right? And if you're someone who's
Absolutely.
already gotten out, if you've gone through transition, it doesn't matter if you're an E1, E4, E9, O1, or an O7. If you are out of the military, you are now the foremost expert in that area, because no disrespect to those still serving, they don't know what it's like. And I've talked about it. Kay talks about it. It's the blind leading the blind. And unless you've made that transition, you're speaking from a place of hypothesis of, well, I've heard this. You have almost a moral obligation and a supreme opportunity to be a leader outside of the uniform. to be capable of reaching out, especially if it's someone you knew and or were in charge of. It goes a long way. Just a phone call, text, email, instant message, whatever. Hey, I know you're coming up on getting out. If you ever want to talk about, worries, concerns, or if I could help you navigate that process anymore, I would really love that opportunity. Right.
Right. Yep. That's a great point. I'd love to make it one more point about transitioning too. And it's going to seem like I'm a little bit of a wet blanket here, but it's the honest to God truth from my perspective. So, especially with recruiters, like we push the fact that like you're going to get real world experience, you're going to know a skill, and you'll be able to transition that skill over to the civilian world when you're done with your service. And I'm here to tell you that, and again, I don't mean to be the wet blanket, but largely from my experience, civilian employers don't give two shits about your military experience. There are some jobs out there that, being a veteran will give you some preference for hiring, and some employers do actually like seeing like, oh, well, this guy's squared away. He was in the military, and it definitely helped me out in my career. But not everybody takes the same path that I do. And other employers out there, especially in the private sector, they might not care that you were a 20-year career soldier with every award in the book, an unbelievable leader, the top 1% that our country has to offer. They don't care. They want to see certain degrees or certain work experience. They don't care that you were in charge of millions of dollars of equipment and soldiers' lives. They want to see that, you could sell night vision goggles for the past 5 years to, I don't know, this company in Bulgaria or something, which, yeah, I did interview for a job like that and I didn't end up taking that.
I mean, what a great point. And guys, that's 2 weeks in a row, 2 episodes in a row where you're hearing the same thing. 3 of us have now said, people say thank you for your service, but it is very hard to translate what you did in the military into civilian speak. And one of the hardest pills is taking things that you found that were important and meaningful and impactful and being told, no one cares. That's not a good bullet for your resume. Figure it out. The transition services across the branches have got to do a better job on figuring that out. I've been retired almost 4.5 years. I mentioned in a previous episode, I didn't even get a job as a Marriott security guard. I do have some other interviews that I've been going to, and I'm enjoying that, but it is a fight. It is a fight trying to figure out how to sell yourself. And before, even if it was just a human being reading your resume, now you're dealing with ATS and all these systems that scan it before they even get to HR. It is a steep mountain to climb. Great points. So as long as I've known you, you've said you wanted to be a firefighter.
Yeah.
Firefighting is one of the few civilian jobs with the same stakes and brotherhood as the military. Walk me through how you navigated that journey, and how does a firehouse compare to a platoon or a company?
Yeah. So prior to me getting out to ETSing, I was actually still on recruiting duty, and I knew I wanted to be a firefighter upon completion of my term of service because mostly I wanted that camaraderie. Yeah, I wanted to continue service because it actually makes me feel good and I love what I do, but I wanted the camaraderie. And, law enforcement side wasn't necessarily a good option for me. Um, so I thought, fire service is the way to go. So, still on recruiting duty, I actually ended up taking the Massachusetts firefighter civil service test prior to getting out. Got my EMT license and had the service pay for that as well. And then I sat on a hiring list. And this is talking, 2007 when I was getting out. Very, very, very competitive to get hired in the Northeast as a firefighter. These are good paying jobs out here, good schedules, great job, obviously. And there was a lot of veterans in this area. And like I was saying previously, with civil service in Massachusetts, veterans experience gets you hiring points on the civil service list. So I landed myself at the top of the list for the municipality I lived in. But it wasn't an immediate hire. I think civil service lists are good for 2 years, and I didn't get hired off of my list. I think it was a year and a half by the time I finally got a call from the department. Um, So I got hired at I ETS'd out of the army in March of 2007, and I still hadn't gotten a call from the fire department. So I was like, well, I can't not do anything. So I did a brief stint as a Department of Veterans Affairs police officer. Um, it's actually one of the largest, or it might be the largest federal police
Yeah.
department in the country. I worked at the Jamaica Plain campus in Boston, and if anybody's familiar, it's not exactly a great neighborhood there, but the people were awesome. You're around veterans all day, and I'm talking from World War II down to our generation and younger. But it wasn't what I wanted to do for a career. Like it was federal service. The pay was pretty comparable to the fire department, but it wasn't my calling. It wasn't my purpose. So I just had to bide my time until I finally got a call from the fire department. And I'll never forget that too. I was on a cruise with my family, like my entire family. We were down in the Caribbean. We had pulled into our first port, which I think was somewhere in Mexico. And I was like, I'm gonna dig my cell phone out to see if I get any messages or text messages or whatever. And I ended up turning my phone on and I had a voicemail, and it was from one of the deputy chiefs of my department saying, "Hey, we're gonna be hiring you. You need to come into the department and sign the hiring list." I was like, "Oh my God, I'm down in the freaking Caribbean and I'm getting offered a job right now. Like I'm gonna lose this job." And I started panicking real quick. So I made an international phone call to the fire department and talked to that particular deputy chief. I was like, "Chief, I'm sorry. I'm out of the country right now, but as soon as I'm back, can you just hang on and wait for me to come in and sign that?" And he's like, "Yeah, absolutely, no problem. Take your time."
Oh, that's awesome.
And I got hired in the beginning of 2008, and I am still there currently, 17 and a half years later.
Hashtag no big deal. Before we move on and you finish the other part of the question, I do want to point out like it's not going to be smooth sailing. The chances of you walking out of the military into your calling and your dream job are very, very slim. You mentioned stuff you did. Kay's mentioned stuff he did. I've mentioned stuff I did. I worked security. I worked for the government. I taught high school English and coached baseball. Like it's taken me almost 5 years to get to where I feel like I know what I'm supposed to be doing. And
Mm.
if you're listening, there's a great video on YouTube. It's by Wes O'Donnell and it's called Veterans Fight. It's a 2 minute, 18-second video and he lays it out in real terms, but he also provides a little bit of inspiration and motivation when you feel like, you know, WTF, man, I thought this was going to be easier. And when I go to the gym, that's normally the first thing I put on because it's early and I'm old and my body hurts. I'm like, what are you doing? And it gives me a little bit of oomph before,
Right.
I go. Okay. So how does the firehouse compare to like a military element?
So actually pretty similar. Like you have your cast of characters in a military platoon. Like you got the internal leaders, the real leaders, you got the clowns, you got the guys that don't shower and probably should type of thing. No different than the firehouse. It's a bunch of different personalities that all work and live together. Like we in the fire service, we spend about 1/5 of our adult life living with those guys that you work with. So you hope you get on a good crew, which fortunately I am right now. It is a little bit different. Like yes, the camaraderie is there. Yes, they will go to great lengths to make sure that all of us go home at the end of our shifts, but it's not quite the same. And nothing really ever will be the same as the bonds that you form in the military. I am very fortunate to have an amazing crew, an amazing group of guys that I work with, and I try to take care of them, and they definitely take care of me. There are some small differences, but I think a lot more ball busting in the fire service, a
I
lot
bet.
more. But in terms of alcohol consumption, I'm still probably gonna, God, I'm gonna catch shit for this. I'll probably give it to the fire service for alcohol consumption too. And
Wow.
I would say confidently, firefighters eat way more donuts than cops do, and that's not even close.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love that. I love a little bit of humor about the service and really just from me and everybody else. Much love and respect for someone with such clarity who signed up in a time of war, knew the chances of you going into harm's way were pretty high. And then after taking off the uniform, having the patience and desire and determination to not only put on another uniform, but one that is guaranteed to put you in harm's way more often than not. Um, as your friend and as your brother, I'm just blown away with your courage and your selfless service that you have exemplified over 25 years.
Right. No, I appreciate it, man. I really do. I love my job. I still think to this day that it's the greatest job in the world. And hopefully I have a nice, healthy 32-year career. And then I can go off into the sunset and leave it to the younger generation of firefighters. But and here's how I describe my job. I work in a high school, essentially, with probably more gossip than a high school. And we get given $1 million toys to play with, and occasionally we get to do some really cool shit. That's how I describe my job to people. And, every day that I go to work, I don't feel like I'm actually going to work. I just feel like I'm going to go hang around some cool dudes, eat good food, bust each other's balls, train a little bit, clean a whole lot of bit, and try to make a positive impact.
Hell yeah. And you absolutely do that. But the job, whether it's the military or especially in the fire service, doesn't come without its hazards and conversations we've had. You've been open about the mental health battles you faced since leaving the army. And if you don't mind sharing to whatever extent you're comfortable with, what has that fight looked like for you and what has helped?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm pretty open about my mental health journey, and it's going to get a little heavy, but it's part of my story, and I'm all right with it. So I probably started struggling mental health wise almost immediately following my separation from the army. Like I was telling you earlier, like I don't think I've ever felt more alone. I didn't have my purpose then. I didn't have the camaraderie, the brotherhood. I didn't have my best friends, to the left and right of me picking me up. But like with a lot of veterans and a lot of males, um, there's still a stigma behind mental health. And so we're almost trained from the time that we were kids is to toughen up, shut up, and just keep driving on, which is what I did. And it was, did I like how I was feeling every single day? Absolutely not. Was I like huge into like the self medicating with alcohol or drugs? No, not really. My downfall was that I internalized everything and I self-isolated, um, which is pretty self-destructive, come to find out, uh,
Absolutely.
which is 100% the wrong thing to do, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Um, my PTSD symptoms, I would classify into primary symptoms and secondary symptoms. My primary symptoms were like the, average heightened awareness, easily startled, constantly irritable, angry sometimes. And that shit really started to bother me. And I'll tell you, when it really came to a head was after my son was born and he's just learned how to walk. And I remember clearly my son's mom telling him, saying, Sean, if you wake up in the middle of the night, make sure you come to mom's side of the bed. Don't go to dad's. And because if I would get startled in the middle of the night, I had a tendency to throw my fists. And I would never be able to forgive myself if I ever hit my son just because he was waking me up for a glass of water or because he had a bad nightmare. So that really hit me hard. So I was like, well, I got to start tackling these primary mental health symptoms that I was having because I didn't like how I was feeling. And that really made me feel like shit. So I actually worked with the VA, found myself a counselor at the VA, which didn't take too long. But what did take a long time is trusting that person because you end up talking to them about like your deepest and darkest and most intimate shit. And it's not
Hmm.
easy. And I'll tell you, like, I'll be straight up honest. Like, I would start therapy and then I would quit, and I would start and I would quit because it sucked. But you don't ever and purposely want to put yourself in uncomfortable or painful situations. And talking about your deepest and darkest shit is painful, not physically necessarily, but mentally, it is painful. Until I think the third time starting another program, they just stuck with it after multiple threats from my wife at the time. Like, you need to get the shit right because you can't keep living like that. And she was right. So I busted my ass to really get to the point where I could be like a contributing, functioning member of society and feel good about myself. And I did that. But that only really covered my primary symptoms of PTSD. And like any idiot, I said, oh, the secondary ones aren't that bad. I can manage that myself. And I found out eventually, once I hit my rock bottom, that you cannot manage them by yourself. So my secondary PTSD symptoms, and I still carry them to this day, are my fear of loss and fear of abandonment. This is what I've had the professionals tell me anyway, after shrinking my brain about 1,000 times. So what did that look like for me? For me, that was, I don't ever want to lose a family member or somebody I care about ever again because it'll break me. I don't think mentally I could handle it. So I didn't process that very well. So what would I do? I would self-isolate even more because I didn't want to have anybody close to me. I would keep everybody, including my wife at the time, at arm's distance because for a couple of different reasons, including you guys, like some of my favorite people in the entire world. I wouldn't let them get close because I was deathly afraid that I was going to lose that person. So, I think I kept everybody, including my parents, other family, and friends at arm's length. And the only person in my life that I didn't push away was my son.
Mhm.
I tried, I would talk to therapists about this, and I kind of figured this out on my own. The only reason why I think I never pushed Sean away and always kept him close and had a really good relationship with him is because when I look at my son, I see the best of me. I don't see any of the bad. I just see the good. And that's what I wanted to hold on to. Everything else was bad except for him. Like I would fuck up everything else except for him. That's the one thing I didn't fuck up. So going back to like the fear of loss and abandonment and not being able to let go, I always tell this story about my son learning how to ride a bicycle. Like training wheels were off. He was riding with me still holding on to him or holding on to the seat. And I knew he was ready. He knew he was ready. I wasn't ready though. Like I could
Mhm.
not let go of him
Yeah.
because of my fear of something bad could happen to him. Nobody was good enough to ever watch over his safety other than me. And that included his mom, which was unfair to her. My dad, that was my fear, was something bad happening to him, so I couldn't let him go. And I feel bad because I think I negatively affected him that way, and I was a helicopter parent, and now he's like a very cautious kid, but a very healthy kid, thankfully. So his mom ended up teaching him how to ride a bike because she could let him go. Like I'll beat myself up about that to the end of time, but he's still a well-rounded kid, and I realized where I went wrong and how to fix that.
Absolutely.
Uh,
And you are a great dad. And I look at the people that are in my circle, my inner circle, and I think that's the common thread between all of us. We're we've all been divorced, which sucks, but we are really, really good dads. I've watched you interact with your son and he adores you. I've watched Kay interact with his kids and they adore him. I watched Justin interact with his girls and they adore him. And I think there's something about our generation where we're kind of in the sweet spot of parenting, where we understand the value and importance of discipline without it exceeding to abuse or neglect. And we're not so soft to where there's no consequence for actions. Like you're going to be held accountable, but in a healthy manner. And watching you grow from the experience you talked about to just seeing you last year going to the restaurant and Sean asking questions that you knew he knew the answer to, but he wanted to talk about it with you
right.
was awesome. And my heart swelled. I felt like the Grinch, like it grew 3 times that day. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it is. He's a good kid, and he's probably the best accomplishment I've ever had in my life is him, and he's an awesome young man. But like all things with mental health, I did eventually hit my rock bottom, and my ex was you know sick of me and my self isolation and just being a shitty individual. that obviously it eventually led to my divorce. But prior to that, so the downfall of me was working 72 hours straight at work on purpose. Like, I didn't mind working overtime. If we had had 3 shitty nights in a row, and I think I had a total of maybe like 3 hours of sleep over the 72 hours. So mentally, I was cooked. Got home after that 72-hour shifts, and me and the wife started arguing immediately. And it wasn't great, so I ended up leaving. And then, let's see, I didn't come home the rest of that day. I actually slept in my truck in some skeezy rest stop on the side of the highway. Like, I felt creepy as hell, just lost, not knowing what to do, not realizing that I was fucking this up because I refused to get myself the help that I needed. So I eventually got a call at 6 in the morning the following morning from Sean, actually, and he's bawling his eyes out, saying that mom just told me that you and her are getting a divorce, and that broke me. Uh, that was the end. And things transpired when I got, and I told Sean, I was like, buddy, I'm gonna be right home. So I went home, and things transpired in the house. Me and my ex still weren't getting along, and Sean was very upset, and I didn't want to do anything in front of him. At one point, I didn't think I would ever be able to see Sean again, um, which was the final nail in my coffin. So that was my purpose leaving. Like, being a dad is one of my greatest purposes on this earth, and I had lost that, or at least I thought I had lost it at that time. So, I kissed Sean on the forehead, went upstairs to my gun safe, grabbed a gun, hopped in my truck, and went down the beach, down the end of the road. And I sat there for a long time with my gun ready to go. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was for religious reasons or some type of moral reason. I could not do it myself. So what did I do? Called the suicide hotline. I dialed 988, pressed 1 for veterans. And if anybody actually needs help, please reach out to them. They're amazing people. And I ended up having a 25-minute conversation with a woman on the phone, and I'll never forget her. She had the same name as my maternal grandmother. And she tried talking me off the ledge for 25 minutes, and bless her heart, like, she tried as hard as she could, and it just wasn't working. Like, I was gonna do something really, really stupid. After talking with her for a while, I had made the decision to do suicide by cop. So what I did was is I told her where I was, what my truck looked like. I was on the truck in the parking lot, told her my exact location, and then I hung up, knowing full well that she was going to send the cops. And I sat there just, bawling my eyes out, saying, Sean's going to be better without his dad. And which turns out that no kid should ever grow up without their father, especially boys. They need their dads. And, through the tears, I had my moment of clarity, uh, that I didn't want my son to grow up without a dad. I saw flashes of his face, from the time he was a baby till that day. And I said, no, I have to stay for him. So I unloaded my gun, put it up on my dashboard, and rolled down my window. And probably 30 seconds later, I got swarmed by just about every cop in town. And they came in calm, cool, collected. Obviously, the suicide hotline had told them that they were dealing with a suicidal veteran. And they were ultimate professionals. They came over to my truck. The 2 officers that approached me, both veterans, grabbed my gun, grabbed the magazine that was out from it, got me out of the truck, and then searched me real quick just for safety. And I totally got that. And then we sat and talked for about 20 minutes. They wanted to find out what was going on. How could they help? Why are you this low? We got to get you some help, type of thing. So they were gentlemen, consummate professionals. They treated me with the respect that I deserved. And I'm so glad that I didn't put them in the position of them having to live with the fact that they ended a veteran's life because he was going to suicide by cop. So from there, I went to the hospital, checked myself into the happy hallway for people with mental health issues. Stayed there for 3 days, and I remember you coming out and um, spending some time with me when I was in the hospital, and it meant the world for me. I mean, you were still in Michigan, and you flew out, immediately, which was something I'll never forget. Um, Ended up getting out of the hospital, and then I obviously still needed some help, so I ended up checking into a place just outside of Washington D.C. that is set up for firefighters with mental health problems, and they also treat substance abuse problems. And I spent the next 35 days there getting my shit right. And I'm talking about they dove deep into the depths of trauma and unresolved shit and taught me on how to process it and gave me a bunch of different tools for coping skills. And it's the greatest decision I've ever made in my entire life. They put a lot of shit in perspective. It makes me help shape me be the person I am today. And it was a really good experience. Was it really hard being away from my son for, 40 plus days? Absolutely. But I look back at it now, and, 40 days is a blink of an eye compared to a lifetime of being mentally sound so I can be the best version of myself for him.
Absolutely.
And that's where I'm at today.
What an incredible story. Thank you for not only sharing it, but sharing it with no filter, no lens, and just being raw and vulnerable. That's incredible.
Appreciate it.
There are hopefully a lot of veterans listening, or anyone listening for that matter, that might be in that same dark place right now. What would you say to your brother or sister who's struggling but is keeping quiet?
You're not alone. And here's what somebody said to me, and it makes perfect friggin' sense. You think about your best friend, and if you knew that they were struggling or having really dark thoughts and they didn't ask you for help, you'd be pissed at them. And that's where it kind of boiled down to with me, is like I knew I was struggling, but I never wanted to be a burden to the people that loved me, even though I come to find out that you are never a burden to the people that care about you. I know that, with you and with, Kay and with Justin, my family, guys at work, you are never a burden to the people that give a shit about you. So if you're not doing well, let them know. They'll be there to pick you up.
Absolutely. You are someone I have and continue to describe as a man of principle. Where did those values come from? Is it family? Was it your upbringing? Is it service? Is it faith? Like, how
It's
did those get
probably,
instilled in you?
yeah, no, it's probably a combination of all of them. Like I had a pretty good upbringing. I have amazing parents who
Yeah,
are
you do.
still together 51 years later. Let's see. I went to good schooling system. I was very athletic growing up as a kid. So very into team sports. Service, obviously. Service means the world to me. Like my life is dedicated around service. It didn't stop at my military time. I'm going to do my entire professional career in service of others. And the people that I meet throughout life, like I surround myself with good people, and that means the world. If you're not around the good people that you're not going to get very far. So I think that the company that you surround yourself with is the difference maker.
I couldn't agree more. Inevitably, one day we all pass, and the honor and responsibility of writing and presenting your eulogy is going to fall to someone. What is it you hope is going to be said about you?
I told exceptionally good dad jokes.
I mean, that's 100%. You are quick with them for sure.
A passionate guy who had his faults, but rose above them. I'd like somebody, look at my son and say, that's his legacy that he's leaving to the world. And you can look at Sean and realize his character is hopefully a reflection from me. Definitely his mom too, but, at least half of him is from me. They don't need to talk about my accomplishments or anything like that, or the fact that, I'm an extraordinarily good singer in the shower. I'll be happy if somebody just looks at Sean and says, you know what? His dad was a good man.
That is absolutely beautiful. Jason, brother, just thank you for being here. I'm so grateful for your story, for your honesty, for your friendship. Going all the way back to the start of the conversation when we said goodbye before I went to Germany, I can still feel the burning sensation in my eyes as the tears started to build up as I was pulling out of your parents' driveway. And that's a sensation I work diligently to avoid. And I just want to say thank you for always being there for me, and the world is better with you in it.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you for having me on. You're doing unbelievable things in the world right now, man. And love you. Proud to know you. Keep doing your thing, and we're right next to you, man.
I love you too. And for anyone listening, what you heard is exactly what the Invisible Veteran is about. It's messy, it's honest, and it's finding purpose again. It's rebuilding who we are outside of the uniform and not doing it alone. Wow. What an incredible, transparent, and vulnerable moment and conversation. Jason, thank you so much for having the courage to share your story with us. It undoubtedly has the ability to make a positive impact with someone struggling. If you're listening right now and you're struggling, or you know someone who is, hear me. You are not alone. They are not alone. Call 988. Reach out to somebody you trust. Your story is not finished yet, and the world is better with you in it. Thank you for listening to the Enduring Mindset podcast. If this episode spoke to you, share it with a friend, family member, colleague, anyone who might need it. Give us a follow on Instagram at enduring_mindset_enterprise. Until next time, onward, forward, fall out.